Good morning. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here today and you've joined us today. You are on the Success Secrets for Business, Family, and Life channel. This is the Coffee Break Show. I'm Vickie Helm. I'm so glad you're here. And this is brought to you by the Metadime Digital Network. So listen, if you're new here, we go live Monday through Friday and we share tips, tools, techniques, inspiration, motivation, and those things that are going to help you create thrivability in your life. And every Wednesday, we pull on an expert guest. And I want to let you know, I have been waiting for a long time to talk to today's guest. And today's guest is Thea Johnson Swafford, and she is an expert at sustainability and food forest gardening. And we're going to be talking everything about creating thrivability in your own yard, in your own home. Thea, welcome to the show today. I'm so glad you're here with us.
Thank you. I am so honored.
Thank you. We've been talking a little bit in this back show just before this went on. And right now, people don't understand how important food production is. And I want to talk a little bit of the data. We are literally at the lowest food storage or food we've ever had, and in the world, not just here, but in the world. And some places are literally starving. And so the food supply was disrupted by the pandemic. There's a lot of food loss. Yeah. But I know that if you know how to create your own food, you are absolutely in a position for that. And I want you to tell me how you got started. And I just want to say good morning, Jane. Nice to see you. Good morning, Karen. Nice to see you. People coming on. Just say hello and pop in and join the conversation. And so what happens is I want to know, because you grew up in this, right? Tell us about how you learned all this and how you got to accomplish this task that you're at.
Well, it wasn't something that I anticipated. It's just a way of life in my family. I had the honor and privilege of having grandparents that were born between 1900 and 1916. And I also had a great grandmother that was born in the 1800s that lived until I was 4. I remember her well. She's a sweetheart. And my maternal grandparents, I had grandpa until I was 43 and grandma until I was 55. And wow. So my daughter also had that way of life. It wasn't a matter of teaching or it was just our way of life. And you have to understand with people of that age group what they've gone through. There was no refrigeration. Mm-hmm. When refrigeration came in, there were no grocery stores. The grocery stores didn't start till the 1940s. I think the first one was the Piggly Wiggly. Before that, there were no grocery stores. So, you had to know how to dehydrate food, which is the oldest form of food preservation. You had to know how to can food. You had to know to grow what you eat what you grow, barter with your neighbors. Mm-hmm. You can't do everything yourself. The other thing that people don't understand in growing food is that what grows in your area naturally is what your body needs to eat in that area. That's what sustains you in that area. So if you're taking beefsteak tomatoes from upstate New York and trying to bring them to Central Florida and go, I can't get them to grow. I can't grow tomatoes. Well, that's because they don't belong here.
Interesting. So
but we do import tomatoes.
We do. We have, we have tomatoes everywhere, but that's so interesting because is it that some tomatoes or some varieties of that tomato can actually be grown in different areas, or is it just like tomatoes don't grow here, so they shouldn't be eaten by you, but this grows here, it should be eaten by you?
Yes.
Interesting. So you were raised in this. Tell us what it was like. Tell us what it's like to live in seasons, because one of the things I know that I think is so interesting is we've lost touch with the value of the seasons. Like we can get watermelon in January, you know what I mean? And there's the value of living in the seasons. What's that like?
When you live in the seasons, you're eating local food. And while it does benefit the local farmers for you to buy from them, it benefits you more because, as we said, as you're going through the seasons and you're eating what grows in those seasons, That's what your body needs to thrive in that location.
That's amazing. That's one of the biggest things most important things I've heard. That
And
your
it's
body.
fresh.
Mm-hmm,
You're not
mm-hmm.
buying a tomato from California in the middle of winter that's been shipped across the country, green, gassed in the back of a truck, stored
Yeah.
in a grocery store. You're walking out in the yard and going, yup, that's a tomato. It's ready. Let's eat. So you're getting all
Yeah.
of the nutrients out of that tomato, out of the soil, and what you need to thrive in that area.
So tell us, if you're a beginner, like people, they don't understand
Mm-hmm.
how important food production is going to be. As agribusiness is going to be the number one business there, whether it's a small farm or a medium farm, or even just a microgreens business in your home. Those are going to be
Right.
solid businesses to have. Why? Because the food supply is so low right now. If you take a look at the news and even look at the people who are having to go to food banks, we are emptying out our food stores at such a rate. We're hitting emergency supplies. I mean, it's so low that some countries have already run out. And everybody knows that China has run out so much because of the flooding they had this year. They had to buy food from all over the world. And that means there are two things that can happen here. I want to say one of the years that I grew a garden, the one most important thing I learned was how much money I saved. Absolutely how much money I saved being able to grow my own. So right now we have this pandemic, and it means that farmers out there doing what they're doing because they were at the pandemic considered non-essential, which is crazy to me. But so how is it if you're just starting, and I want to get into food forests, but let's say we're at the beginning places, what would you suggest people do first? What's some of the things they need to learn first as they maybe start a couple of beds, maybe 2 beds of a garden space?
Okay. I moved to what I call the humblest homestead here last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I put in 2 beds. Each bed, I picked up the equipment from Home Depot. Each bed is 4 foot by 28 foot. That makes it 96 foot.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing I put down was all of the oak leaves I could find. Then I went to all of my farmer friends that sell produce, and I put down a layer of compost. Any rotten produce I could find, I covered that with another layer of leaves, and then I bought and put soil on top of that. Each year that will build. What people don't understand is, first of all, buy what grows where you live.
Buy what
The
grows.
second thing is use heirloom seeds.
Buy what grows where you live, and buy heirloom seeds. Could you tell me what are heirloom seeds for those people who don't know?
Okay, a lot of seeds that you buy will grow produce, but you cannot take the seeds from that produce and replant it and grow the same produce.
I see.
So if you get heirloom seeds from someone that you know, trust, and like, guy, I went back to marketing, didn't I? Yeah, I mean, okay. If you buy a tomato from me,
organic seeds, they're original seeds. Yes, the heirloom seeds.
They will reproduce where the hybrid seeds are bred not to reproduce.
I got it. So the heirloom seeds will produce, and you can use the seeds from those heirloom seeds to plant more seeds. So you have an ongoing process of it. I'm with you now.
Yep.
I'm with you now.
Yep. Okay. Down here, we grow Ruskin tomatoes in Central Florida, and that's from Ruskin, Florida, and it's more or less a Better Boy tomato, but it's an heirloom seed. So if you buy a Better Boy tomato from me or a Ruskin tomato from me, and you go home and eat the tomato, but you save a few seeds, you can grow your own tomatoes.
Brilliant.
And people don't think about that.
Yeah, it's so interesting. If I had it to do all over again, I would have had a farm
Mm-hmm.
at a much earlier age, because that's how important the farm is, and learning these essential keys that you have for living. This is, living humbly. I want to pop over here because people are talking. Robin says, yes, we learned that lesson first with honey. Better to buy local honey at is best for what we need living here. That's so true. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Karen says, what a wonderful legacy from your ancestors, and to pass the future generations. Yes, in my book, The Ultimate Freedom, there was a guy I met, and he was like 90 something or other, and he had 2 apple trees in front of his yard. And he told me, he gave me a few apples, and I made an apple pie and went back and, talked to him with the apple pie that he made. And he said, if you want to leave a legacy, stop, trying to save all that money and plant an apple tree. These apple trees are 98 years old, and they'll feed everything, not just you, everything for 100 years now. And I thought about that, leaving that legacy. So I literally planted an orchard in my backyard. We dug up the dirt and did everything in his name for that. I wanted to leave a legacy. And whether it's the deer or the birds or the caterpillars or the people or the bears, which I really, the bears are really something because they hurt the tree. I realized that having that orchard is the legacy, part of the legacy I want to leave. If you want to leave a legacy, plant a tree. Plant something that's going to grow, grow, grow. And, I think that's such a great thing to say. Let's see, we have a big push to buy local crops. Therefore, we eat lots of potatoes. Yes, that's what's here. We buy local. Thank you for that, Karen. I think buying local and supporting your farms. I love CSAs. I love getting food from that way. And that's what we do a lot of. There is so many things. I love heirloom seeds, my absolute favorite. Thank you very much. That is there. Fred, nice to see you on. Looking forward to talking with you tomorrow. Let's see what we got. Tip number 2, only buy heirloom tomatoes, only heirloom seeds or heirloom tomatoes. Eat what's in your area. Eat what's local in your area, because that's what's going to be best for your body. In a world we are in today, heirloom seeds are an investment. That's really true, because the shortage of food, so many people have already bought the heirloom seeds. I know when they came out in November, we bought ours and they were sold out for the whole season by the end of November of this year in 2020, because people understand how expensive food's going to get. And I know there are some families out there going, do I pay my mortgage or feed my family? Well, with heirloom seed, you can do both. You can feed your family and, pay your mortgage. So I want to talk about, Thea, I want to go into food forests, why you love them, why you're passionate about them, how what you've invested into your food forest. And I'm a big proponent for the food forest.
Well, an average fruit tree will produce 250 to 300 pounds of fruit per year once it starts producing. And an average fruit tree here will start producing in 1 to 3 years. And people go, oh, you can't plant that many fruit trees. Well, I have a key lime tree. It's about knee high. There's 20 key limes this year. So, they think of trees, they think of like grandfather oaks and things like that. And that's not the way it is. The average fruit tree has here where I am, has a girth of about 12 feet. So if you plant a fruit tree every 15 feet, and then you plant under it those items that require shade, and there's 7 levels of permaculture that you plant underneath the plants, and they nurture each other. So when you're putting in a food forest, you have like your oak tree with your citrus tree under it, that the oak tree protects it from the frost, it protects it from the summer heat. So there's no extremes for your fruit tree. And then under that, you plant a fruit bush, depending on where you are. It could be currants, it could be blueberries, whatever. And then under that, you plant your smaller plants and your annuals. And the other thing that people don't realize is how pretty plants are. They go, well, I live in a gated community. Well, there's different colored cabbages that are often used in gated communities as ornamental plants. I have kale that is blue. I have kale that is purple. I had red garnet amaranth that is ruby red. They don't realize that flowers are edible.
That's true.
All of your natural hibiscus are edible. The seed pods that they produce after the flower has bloomed is a very meaty seed pod that can be used in teas and is an extreme source of vitamin C. So
Wow.
it is, these are things that people just weren't raised to know. It's not that there's, any sort of deficiency in their learning. It's just that they didn't have that opportunity, and that's something that we should give them.
Wow, that's beautiful what you just said. I really appreciate how it's an ecosystem that you've created, an ecosystem where
Yes.
everything grows and loves on each other in that way. Robin wants to ask, whoa, that's amazing. What part of the country do you live in, Thea? I know wherever she's living sounds good with the oak trees and that and everything else. Are you West Coast or East Coast?
I'm Midwest, kind of. I grew up in Michigan, and so I had to learn how to deal with the harsh winters there and shoveling snow off the roof and all of those fun things, getting up in the morning and finding that your car had been taken away by a snowplow. And as an adult, well, my grandpa moved to Florida when I was 12, and I started coming down, spending the winters with him, doing my homework here and mailing it back to school. And then when Grandpa started having health issues when I was 28, I moved down here permanently. And next Monday, I'm going to be 64. So I've been here a while.
Congratulations. So Florida's sounding really good right now, isn't it, everybody? I see, Lisa. I was wondering the same thing. That's right. That's like the place where you can create a wonderful ecosystem. Amaranth is beautiful and nasturtium is yummy with guacamole. So yes, that would be great. So I want to say what's interesting is if you're interested in gardening, if you're interested in creating your own food, I think it's one of the most powerful things you can do for yourself is learn how to grow your own food and be in control of that.
Absolutely.
And one of the other things you can do is also find out what's locally around you. Yes. And what do I mean by that? Well, Robin and I, we don't get our meat from the store. We don't get our food from the store. We don't get, other things from the store. What happens is we end up, we know all the farmers in the area. And I think one of the things that city folk don't know how to do is meet the farmers in their area or meet the people that grow that. But if you live in an apartment building and if you go to Google, you can find what are like community farming, community gardens, where you can go in and get a plot, if you will, and begin there. But wherever you begin, like if you're starting out right now, for me, no matter where I am, right, whatever property I would buy again, if I bought another property in my lifetime, it would have to consist of already having fruit trees, already having some, I don't even care if they're in bad shape, because right now people don't understand that money is not the answer every single time. Your skill sets and what you have to produce money with. And yes, ingenuity is part of that thing that you can sell with. But when you know how to produce food, and we have seen this year how everything slowed down and stopped. We have seen how expensive food has been rising and rising. Some items up to 3,000% this year, inflationary rise. Your salary has not met that 3,000 things. And you always hear somebody say, Thea, I hear this all the time. You know what you used to be able to buy with $100 and now what you can buy with $100 shrinks. But when you have the ability to grow your food, when you have an over amount of it, I want to talk about the preservation ways that you can go ahead and, what can you do to preserve your food so that it lasts all winter long and you have it everywhere?
Okay, great question. What we have always done is what grows in this season needs to last a year to get back to this season. Anything you have in addition to that, then you you barter with.
Yeah.
So we can, but the easiest thing for people, and it's the oldest form of preservation that I'm aware of, is dehydration.
Interesting.
And when things are inexpensive, dehydrate them. If you don't grow your own garden, I mean, I try to start where people are when I'm teaching. And one of the biggest things is, okay, I've got a mommy on WIC. She's carrying a baby. She's got two at her side. Go and get a bag of frozen vegetables. They're usually 88 cents at Walmart. Dehydrate them. Dehydration is super easy. You don't need a dehydrator. But the other thing about having dehydrated things is it makes them super portable. Those 2
Yes.
bags of frozen peas, per se, once dehydrated, will fit in a 1 jelly jar.
Mm-hmm.
So you can put them in a Ziploc bag. You can put them in your pocket. If you're in a situation where you have to move from where you are to somewhere else, be it a snowstorm, a thunderstorm, or down here hurricanes, I had to evacuate for 5 days and found myself with an elderly man with dementia that I had never met before, and I had to feed him and I out of my backpack. And if I had not had those dehydrated foods, we would have had a problem. So,
see, and I want to
dehydrate.
highlight that right there that you just said, because right now the thing that is coming up more often and not is these hurricanes and these floods, tons of flooding. These things that are wiping out, the tornadoes that just happened yesterday, they're wiping out everything. And I want to tell you, if you understand the power of being able to have your own food, the cellars underneath those homes that help protect the food there. One of the things that she just said was she had to feed 2 people out of her stores that she had with her. That's so smart to be able to grow your own, because everybody thinks that it's not going to happen to them, that earthquake, that loss of property, that loss of food. And as we move into more of these earth changes that we are having right now, we're seeing this escalate. And that knowing how to have your own and preserve your own and get your own, that is what helped her save 2 lives, hers and somebody with dementia who probably would not have made it if with the dementia by himself. And that's such an empowering thing, because what happens when there is a natural disaster? Your gas stops, your food supply chain stops. The grocery stores could be in complete disrepair. You can't even get in them. I want to tell you something. There was a time, Thea, where I was on the East Coast in 2008 when a huge nor'easter happened, and it wiped out the power, like in Canada, all the way down in several states, like 5 or 6 states. And it was a rough storm. There were power lines down, etc. There's no electricity for 9 days. And at one point, Robin and I were in Massachusetts, and we thought we'll go over to her sister's house to see how they're doing, because they had kids and they had no power. And so we thought, okay, we'll stop by the grocery store. We'll just go stop by the grocery store. I'm not kidding. It must have been about day 4. And I walked into the grocery store and I looked up, and there was nothing, no eggs, nothing. It got wiped out already. It was gone in 4 days. There was an old shriveled up apple that nobody would have eaten, and like some piece, a carrot or celery piece, nothing. It looked like it was a brand new store that had never been stocked. And we think we can't run out of food. But when you manage your money, you manage your whole household, and managing your food supply just seems like it would make sense. So tell me, why did you start a food forest versus a garden? And tell us, what's the difference between the two? What's the difference between that food forest and that garden? How are they different?
Okay, well, the garden is part of the food forest, but at the same time, you want to put in fruit trees. You want to put in perennial vegetables, and your perennial vegetables are like your Okinawan spinach, your longevity spinach, banana plants, things that reproduce themselves, things that reseed themselves. I tell you, if you ever plant a sweet potato, you will have sweet potatoes for life. And the
Love
same
that.
with most other potatoes, because you will not be able to dig them all up. So the next year you will have more. So, you're creating a perpetual food system that doesn't require you. And a lot of the issues I see with people that are avid gardeners is they're just like, heave ho, let's get out there with the hoe and dig it up and turn it over and go to Walmart and Home Depot and Lowe's and buy some of those nice burpee plants and stick them in the ground and give them Miracle Grow and wait. Nature will take care of all of that. It'll take care of all of that. And the YouTube channel that I'm coming out with February 1st is, and may I add, we were talking about my ancestors. I'm going to be a grandma in May.
Congratulations.
And
That's
I'm
so
like
nice.
super excited that my granddaughter know everything that my daughter knows and has reference. So if people just leave the garden alone, leave it alone. If we walk out to my garden now in January, after several freezes, it's been unnaturally cold this winter. I have red rhubarb kale, I have purple kale, I have ginger, I have turmeric, I have onions, I have marigolds that have reseeded themselves. Onions are a bit of a problem because I also have a fox that thinks they're fun to play with. So each morning he pulls them out and runs across the field with them, and the dog and I have to find them and put them back. But we're doing well.
So I want to talk about, because you brought something up that I'm really key Robin in for that. But there are such incredible medicinal plants, and the well-being and longevity of your body, that integration of those two. So it's like you just said, I grow my own turmeric, I grow my own ginger, I grow my own onions. 3 really, really strong, really strong. Is this Thea's website right here? And join her Patreon right there. And here it is. There's a website, patreon.com, Mama's Homestead. And you can learn, you can learn so many things and help support a farmer, help support the person who is teaching you how to do it. And the reason I have Thea on is I have been watching her, and I know how sacred she feels about the earth. And I remember maybe a couple of 3 years ago, people asked, what did you want for Christmas or your New Year's or something? And she replied, I want to add a little bit more to my food forest. And what I think is very interesting about the food forest, the thing I love about the food forest is this ecosystem of things that live together, that support each other in the form of trees and perennials and things like that are so flowers, etc. And sometimes you get gifted something where you're like, where am I going to put you in the forest here? Where will you thrive the most? And you start looking around and trying to make that perfect spot. And believe it or not, I think I can talk to the plants and it hears me like, I want to be over here. So, you put it over there and watch it where it thrives. I treat my forest like pets, they're out there and you're talking to them. I'm always so grateful for the gifts. Like right now we have it's about a 7-foot cherry tomato plant that we grew this year. And it's in the house because it's thriving. It's got tomatoes on it. There's snow outside. We have snow everywhere. And it was thriving inside. It's just going to go back out and grow. But it's like 7 or 8 feet. And we have fresh cherry tomatoes off it. In the wintertime, it's like they're like pets. They're so precious.
Yep.
Everything's so precious. When you work inside that forest and you make the connection with your forest, it becomes a sacred place, doesn't it?
Yes,
it becomes such a
absolutely.
sacred place. And you understand that these beings, these things are giving you gifts of fruit and nutrition and all kinds of, I love that. I need a little more land in the city. Goals. That's right. But you can do. I have a friend of mine who has a container garden, and she has this adorable fig tree that she has had for, I don't know, 10 years now. And it's in this pot. It's not this huge, tall tree. It's just in this pot, and it gives her figs every single season, lots of them. And it has been for 10 years. It doesn't matter whether you're in an apartment or a farmhouse or a home or the city or the urban or the country or rurally, wherever you live, you can do something that is going to benefit your neighborhood, benefit your health, benefit your savings. There is everything about having a food forest is to me the right way of living. It's what would be right living. And let's talk about the sustainability of having a food forest, like seasonally. What are the things that you do that keep it sustainable? How do you take care of that food forest?
Well, one of the things that I've noticed growing up is that if you don't plant in rows, in a food forest, you plant under this tree, you plant under that tree. You're feeding the soil. When you feed the soil, it feeds the plants. Where you don't plant, God will. I have ground cherries. I had never seen ground cherries before, but they're pretty cool. If you don't cut down your plants until the next growing season, and instead of pulling out the roots, they may come back. If you put soil or compost on top of them, the seeds they've dropped will grow. If you have something over here and then something, the same thing planted over there, and a bug gets this patch, it won't get that patch. So mix it up. Mix it up. Make it an Easter egg hunt. Send the kids out and say, go find dinner. And what children grow, they will eat. What children cook, they will eat. And it's a huge benefit to your grocery bill. Now, I decided to come back to where I live now. I had moved away from here for 6 years. Is not only because of the cost of living, but the county I live in was declared by the USDA as a food forest, meaning that 1 in 4 senior citizens and 1 in 4 children did not have ready access to fresh produce.
Wow.
So I bought in a little strip of woods in between 2 gated communities right off of a highway that everybody has access to, and the whole border is being planted in fruit trees. You're hungry, come up and pick some. Take it. If each tree is producing 250 to 300 pounds per flowering, some once a year, some twice a year, some 3 times a year, take it. There's enough for the birds, there's enough for the fox, there's enough for the neighbors, there's enough for the guy walking down the street. Take it. That's who we're supposed to be.
Yes. And imagine if there were more of that in the world. Thank you so much for that. That was beautiful. Just what you said right there. When I was a little girl, and I grew up in California in a kind of a country area, and there were fruit trees everywhere. There were just blackberry bushes everywhere. And during the summertime, it was just like all the kids in the neighborhood, wherever you were playing, you got hungry, you picked that apple, you picked that peach or plum or nectarine, whatever it was. And it was just there, and nobody said anything. It was expected that we were going to do that. It was expected that you should be out in the blackberry bushes going, hey, these are ripe, and, getting in the way of that sometimes. So we have a question from Lisa. Does a food forest work if you live somewhere that freezes for months at a time?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I had a dwarf orchard when I lived in Michigan. It went down the side of my driveway in a city lot. I had 12 trees that were only about 12 foot tall, about 12 foot wide. I had apricots, apples, pears, plums. But when you go to buy them from a nursery. Don't buy them from the big box stores. If you are going to buy them from the big box store, check your zone. Because our big box stores sell things for zone 10 and 11, and we're in zone 9.
Oh, wow.
So, it's a huge difference. Just because you live somewhere and they sell the plant doesn't mean that it will grow there. They sell tulips here. You can't grow tulips here. They need a freeze. So, yeah.
It's interesting too, because when I grew my orchard, because I have dwarfs in there, and I have plums and
awesome.
apricots and apples and things like that. I do too. I love them. But I also studied the variety of those that do, because I'm a high mountain desert and it gets sometimes 40, 45 below in the winter here. And to answer, Lisa, we have trees that do very well, but we also, around our trees, we put hay so that they're warm. They have some patch. They have that, mix that you have, but then hay around them in the wintertime. And we just leave the hay there. It decomposes all over time, but it also helps, keep the water for when it's the drier season up here. But the food forests, I also look at like I have apple trees that do well in that cold, and you can ask them for your area, whatever zone you're in, what trees do well. We have a Wealth apple, we have Liberty apples, because Liberty apples are good all the way to 45 below. And if it's that thing about what she's talking about, our plum trees are like that as well. There are some plums you can grow in this condition and some you can't. You kind of got to know which ones they are. But once you have those things that you can get in your area, there's some cool little there's some cool little tricks that you can use. I want to talk about this right here because this is a big thing we use. We use hay, wood chips to protect them. And we also use ground covering, like just the ground covering that naturally falls. Like you said, we have our compost pile. We have all the leftover dirt, and we don't do anything that isn't organic because it's so true that the earth takes care of itself. Hey, Sean, nice to see you. That's it. We got here. I'm better late than never. Glad you're here. We're talking with Thea Johnson, and we are having a really great conversation. And people are asking her questions right now about sustainability and working in their food forest and how to grow our food here. So if I need a starter, I also look for local growers and neighbors that have started plants. If the seeds have been grown in your own area, they do much better. I like that too.
Not only that, you can take cuttings off a number of plants. And when I take a cutting off of a tomato plant late in the season and I bring it in and put it in a static hydroponic system in the house, that cutting is the same age and maturity as the plant I cut it from. So I don't have to wait for it to grow from a seed. It's already producing tomatoes.
Wow. That's so cool. That was a good tip right there. Did you hear that, everyone? Replay this, put it back. That's a keeper right there for everyone.
And you can do that with most plants as long as you cut the green part of the plant, not the woody part of the plant. Put it in water, throw in an aspirin. It'll root. It's the same age as the plant you cut it off of, and it will produce fruit more rapidly.
Wow, that is incredible. That's such a good tip, Robin. Did you hear that? Let's see. We don't have many trees that have leaves, mostly evergreens. So always looking for a good ground cover. Yes, we have lots of that. And Lisa, what is she saying up here? I want to see. Karen, they are sold through the same company as Juice Plus. You have them outside or inside in the winter. You can get growing lights for them. Since I don't have much land right now, I'm going to start there for fruit and vegetables. Yes, I want to let you know, everybody thinks somehow we're going to recover from this. Thank you very much. I'm not sure who this is, but great info, Thea. Thank you. Yeah, she does deliver a lot of info. She just has so many years of living this lifestyle. She grew up in it. It was part of her bringing up. And all of us used to have these kind of tips and used to have these kind of skills. But the modern way we live has allowed many of these skills to die, and they need to repurpose themselves right now. It is one of the most important and empowering things you can have is a food forest. And I love what you said, Thea, just earlier about the backyard and having fruit trees and it's like your neighbor has fruit trees, you have fruit trees, you have fruit trees. And the thing about bartering, that is such an important skill. And I got to admit, I do that now. I barter right now. And I want to talk a little bit about preserving food because we do a lot of canning up here, a lot of canning. And what we have found we find in our area, because we live very rural up in the mountains, mountain community, etc. People love homemade gifts for Christmas. And
Yes.
Robin makes this wicked good, and I mean wicked good, jalapeno jelly. And she makes all these other kinds of fruit jellies and jams that come out. And we have people who they'll come knocking on the door to pay us for them now. But the fruit canning is so important, because it used to be that was the sweet in the winter time, making that apple pie at that time. And preserved food, I want you to talk about the canning. How long, when you can your preserves, can they last?
If you're canning jams, jellies, marmalades, things like that, right now with the canning jars, they say up to 18 months. I've opened them after 5 years, and they may have been discolored, but they taste the same and they have the same nutritional value. Now, the thing that you're looking at when you have a jam, jelly, marmalade, something like that that's preserved in sugar, and sugar is your preservative. Gee, I'm talking fast.
More. Say it. Keep talking fast.
It is a soft set candy. Okay. And people like to say, well, that's a problem. Well, it's not really a problem, because in a situation like a pandemic or a hurricane or a snowstorm, you're stressed. And the body under stress needs different things than it needs when it's not stressed. And people don't think about that. They don't think about that. Especially children. I had an elder care. I had kids. I had a Girl Scout troop. I've always been around kids. I worked in a foster home for mentally and physically impaired children. Kids need carbs in the morning. Kids don't start the day well. So if you're going to give them something, give them a strawberry shortcake. Give them cereal with fruit and a little scoop of ice cream on top. They're getting their dairy, they're getting their grains, they're getting, they're getting what they need to calm down, to process the energy. And we're seeing a lot during this pandemic where you couldn't buy yeast, you couldn't buy flour, you couldn't buy sugar.
That's right.
And that's because people were panicking. They were panicking, and they needed. Your body knows what it needs. And when you're stressed, your body goes straight to carbs.
That's interesting.
But what people don't know is you can bake a loaf of bread for 25 cents. If you know how to bake a loaf of bread, that can be a quick bread. It can be full of oats and dehydrated apples and, wheat germ and all sorts of things that are good for you. Yogurt. It can be good for you, but still get you through that emotional and that energy need. The big thing we found in elder cares, and we also find with people under stress, is called food fatigue. Where people say, okay, well, I made 28 servings of whatever this is in the crock pot, and so you must eat it for the next 5 days. And that frightens people, and they really enjoy it the first day, and then they go like, oh my God, she's going to make me keep eating this. And so there are ways to get around that. Portion control, putting the fun in budgeting, putting the fun in being frugal. And if that's a lifestyle for you, then you're not traumatized when these things come on, because you have the stability and the confidence of a lifestyle to get you through it. Yeah, it still sucks. There's no getting around it. It's still not what we were looking for this year. But if you understand it, if you have the resources, if you have the knowledge, because you have set those things up, you'll be fine.
I want to say that's so beautiful what you said. And I want to tell you, and I'm so grateful to Robin for this, because in my lifetime, and in most people's lifetimes, when we think about what success is, people think success is the ability to have a lot of money to do whatever you want, when you want, how you want, buy what you want. And consumerism becomes the sign of success, which means I can buy whatever I want. Therefore, I'm successful, or I'm living a high quality of life. And I have to admit, before meeting Robin, I kind of lived that. I lived with the, have to have the new car, the new this, the that, and the everything all the time. And one time when I was having a conversation with her, and she said to me, well, the car is just fine. Why do I need a new one? I'm just, polluting the earth every time I buy a new car. And it stunned me. And so she has this sleeping bag that is from 1986. I mean, it's the oldest sleeping bag, but it's been everywhere around the world with her. It's been on every camping trip. Her kids have laid on it. It's almost the generational thing. And it's in perfectly good condition. And it's so amazing. She's like, I don't need another one. The illusion that your success, Vickie, comes from how many new things you can buy is literally the stupidest thing you could be saying to yourself. And I realized at that moment, I was like, yes, I'm being sucked into this consumerism thing that says I'm only successful if I'm in a really big house and I drive this super, super fancy car that's super, super expensive. And then suddenly I feel good about myself. And I realized that's a false sense of self-esteem. It's a lie that we tell ourselves, right? And so
but it also makes you a victim.
It does. You're a victim to that consumer mentality. And the only way I reversed those things was listening to her and literally downsizing my life from this illusion that success looks like this, and asking myself what I wanted, and the joy of being out and being able to pick a fruit that grew off your tree in that warm, it's just that and the dripping of the juice of that simple way of appreciating the beauty around you in that everything growing, or the flowers that you've planted, etc. You start to understand what's real. And a fruit tree is successful every single year producing fruit, and it never has to go buy a new car. It never has to go. It just is giving, beautiful giving, part of the ecosystem. And I realized that I had been trapped in this disgusting habit of thinking that winning is being able to buy whatever I want when I want. So that whole thing about the sustainability piece is, if everyone just woke up and realized that success isn't what they're selling us, or the propaganda of you get to buy this, own this, have this, or this luxury thing is very luxurious, then you'll suddenly find like you can help more people with your money. You can invest more with your money instead of frivolously throwing it there. But when you leave a legacy for your family, when you leave a legacy, a place that already has mature food forests, you are leaving one of the greatest legacies you could ever leave anyone. And I know this sounds crazy, but that 98-year-old man, if you want to leave a legacy, plant an apple tree. It'll feed you for 100 years. And I don't care how many cars you buy, they're not going to feed you for 100 years. How many, Gucci anythings you have, they're not going to feed you for 100 years. The simple beauty of one perennial planted, you are helping generations. And right now we're living in this economy that is the regenerative economy. And those are the people who are regenerating these farms and these things. If you are looking at what are 3 things people can do right now to help themselves get involved with more sustainable agriculture of sorts, what are 3 things that they can do?
The first thing they need to do is get rid of their excuses, and you can use it as a reason to reach a goal, or you can excuse it for not. And the biggest one I hear is, I have a black thumb. I don't care what color your thumb is. The plant doesn't either. Just give it what it needs and it'll grow. And that doesn't, it can be in a flower pot on a windowsill. It can be microgreens under your counter. You don't need a fancy grow light to grow microgreens. I grow them and sell them at the market when I was doing the markets. before all of this. You can get an under-the-counter light, and it will grow microgreens. Microgreens, once they've sprouted and they've gotten to their first true leaf, and a true leaf, you get these two little round leaves, and then you get the leaves that tell you actually what the plant is, and those are called true leaves. Once it gets to that point, it's 4 to 40 times more nutritious than the adult plant. All of the nutrition is already stored in the microgreen. That's why they're so nutritious. So, I mean, you can wait until it's, 2 foot tall and try and eat all of that, but you're going to get the same nutrition out of that little microgreen. Anybody and their dog can grow those on the counter, under the counter light. It doesn't require a special light. It just requires a chance to grow. Yeah. I grew them in well water and coconut coir. You can grow them in dirt. They grow just as easily. You can grow them year round. If you have an aquarium, you can grow all sorts of lettuces using aquaponics. If you have a tote, you can drill holes in the lid, and you can use static hydroponics in your house. I have 2 of them growing right over there that have 27 plants in them getting ready for the next season. It's just a matter of not knowing what you know. And when you don't know to ask the question, it's crippling. And we've gotten to that point because from the time that you were a small child watching cartoons, you're inundated with commercials. Yep. And my number one example, I try to love people where they are. And the most young people, when I'm dealing with them out in the field, they eat the little blue box of mac and cheese, which is fine. I won't eat it, but okay.
I won't eat it.
I'm going, okay, well, I priced it at the store. It's $1.15. And it's 2 1-cup servings of macaroni and cheese. You still have to boil the water. You still have to add the butter. You still have to add milk. And then you add whatever that day glow powder stuff is. And for the same price as that mac and cheese, maybe a nickel or so more, you can buy 2 pounds of macaroni. Okay. So if you're going to go back and still make that 2 cups of macaroni and cheese, you still have to boil the water. You still have to add the milk. You still have to add the butter, and then you can add real cheese. So how is that more convenient? It's not convenient, and it's more expensive, and it's not as good for you.
Interesting. I love that point of view. That's so true. What's convenient about it? You still have to do all the steps.
So let's take it one point further and say, okay, if you have a family of 4, and if you go through what you normally buy and save 10 cents per meal per person for 1 year, that's $483. No, $438.
Wow.
That's a nice weekend getaway. So what if you save more than 10 cents a meal?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, okay, so what if you go through your electric bill? Okay, you've designated your food bill for family vacation, so let's go through your electric bill. Mm-hmm. How can we save money there? Let's designate that money to paying on the principal to your mortgage.
Love that.
And when you put the fun in a budget, so you're getting a higher quality food for a lesser amount of money. We talk about portion control. Okay, now you're going to save on your utilities as well. Both of these are designated to different places, to different causes. You have a goal. It's not crippling. How can you do better for less? How can you live well for less? And when people start to internalize that, okay, you're not buying your produce anymore. If I'm going to eat meat, I have to buy meat because I can't kill a spider. But sometimes I just don't eat meat. But when you start putting all of these things together, they make sense, and it's fun, and it's a game. The kids will eat what they grow. They think it's pretty, so.
It's beautiful what you're saying right here. Somebody's asking a question. They want to know what a microgreen is. What's a microgreen?
Okay. Microgreens are baby plants. Once you plant the seed and they grow up to the first leaves they will have are little round leaves. and those aren't really considered leaves. And then they'll get a little bit taller, and they'll grow a leaf that's identifiable with the plant. A lot of those are a lot of those are brassicas, which is anything in the cabbage family, anything in the mustard family, any of your lettuces.
Mm-hmm.
And once they get to that point where they have their first set of leaves, and even after that, they will last up to 3 weeks if you continue them growing. Those are considered microgreens as opposed to growing the bigger plant.
Beautiful, beautiful. Those are what microgreens are. Thank you, Robin. You're talking my language. Yeah, thank you. I like this right here. I'm so frugal and feel so good about it. Actually, I am too. I don't even like the word frugal. I think, or conservative or whatever it is. I think that I live in a way that is less caught in the consumerism. And I like that, what she said about being a victim of that mentality. I think that frugal is a way of seeing. It's a mindset we have, because you can be uber wealthy and be very frugal, because I know somebody in my house who is, and that's something that is a really big deal for me. Now, when I think about it, I try to buy something used. Like, I'll never buy a new car again, not a new anything, except maybe a refrigerator if I have to. But I don't want to buy something that is going to continue the process of harming the earth in order to make it for me. There's so many ways you can give back in the world. You can give your time, you can give your money, you can leave a legacy. But to me, because of what I learned from Robin, I am passionate about planting fruit trees. I'm passionate about that because back when I grew up, and most people aren't looking at this, most people aren't acknowledging this, but when I grew up, all the neighbors and all the neighborhood and all the neighbors' backyards and front yards had fruit trees in them. Then suddenly these developers came in and they ripped up all the fruit trees, all the food producing plants are no longer in neighborhoods. There are people that, maybe they have a crab apple tree, but they don't have actual apple trees or actual food forest things there. So when I look at the neighborhood or our homestead in any way, when you are your own functioning system, you are much better off. And I think if neighborhoods were filled with fruit trees, filled all the way with everything, because what you said earlier about how the food forest feeds everything, feeds the foxes, and not in a starving way, like, oh, I don't have any because now the fox had some. There's so much that it produces. You're like, fox, help me eat some of this,
Yes.
Here, chickens, get the chickens over because we need this food eaten. And you're gathering it, drying it, preserving it, eating it, using it. You find the most powerful form of freedom. It's not about frugal to me. It's about being free. Free. You free with your money. You're your own bank, your own grocery store, your own medical supply, because you've planted the ginger, you've planted the turmeric, you've planted the kale, you've planted all these things. And pure freedom is what happens when we understand. Everybody wants me to talk about how to make more money. Well, guess what? With how to make more money, you need to know how to grow more food, how to grow,
how to not spend it.
Yes, and how to save it, how to utilize it in that way. Thea, I want to say I have wanted to have this conversation with you for years. I mean, your posts come up on my feed and I watch them all. I've seen your beautiful production of jams and things that are there in the summertime when you have your table out and you're selling those goods and services out to people that are so yummy. But the care you take in what you do, I have such incredible respect for you. I just want you to know. I want to talk about this as well. Our community made a commitment to plant fruit trees when we redesigned our roads to progress the streets with pavement and sidewalk. And the community came out and grow veggies and decorative veggies and fruits along the road. And at one point, awesome. Robin and I did a gift to our town. We bought I don't know, hundreds of fruit trees, and we just planted them everywhere, in the open parks, by creeks and lakes, in our backyard. I mean, we got 11 of the tons we had. But I think fruit trees are absolutely one of the best ways we can give back. And when I mean fruit trees, avocados, mangoes, I mean, if you live over there where it is, and she said this very, very clearly in the beginning, Thea shared with us how the fruit trees are everywhere. And no matter who you are, if you're hungry, just grab one, take one, eat one, and we have lost the flow of abundance because we've urbanized ourselves so much. We've lost that flow of abundance. The fruit trees are abundant. And when you have a food forest and you have abundance everywhere, there is no suffering. There is no going hungry. And the only way we can help these hungry people in the world is if we join in and grow more food. And Robin and I, we try to grow food for us and now food for our neighbors, like, here, would you like some? And pretty soon they're like, oh God, run, they're bringing us more tomatoes, cucumbers, and squash. So, that is, that's a run.
I had a neighbor with a note on the door that says, please no more rutabagas.
Yeah, I know. But I love those things. It's been a joy to talk with you today. And I want to thank you for having this conversation with me.
The pleasure's mine. I will talk to you anytime. I think we coined a new term. Instead of frugal, let's be frugal.
Frugal. Did you have that? I love that. Hi. Today, I'm going to teach you how to be frugal. That's right. It's coined a new term today. That word just got birthed. Thea, she did it. I love this right here. Thea Johnson Swafford simply takes the time to do these things right and in a useful manner. Yes, hearts. I think that might be Carla. Thank you. I have people coming on. Thank you. This was great. Yes, it was. I absolutely love having this conversation. It's something that I'm passionate about. Here it is. There's the first use of it. Frugal. Love it. When we can put it in the Victionary. I have something called the Victionary. I have my words in frugal. Put Thea's name next to it because she coined it right then. We're not going to be frugal. We're going to be frugal. That's right. To me, that was an important bet. All right, you guys, thank you. This was the Coffee Break Show tomorrow. Hey, okay, thank you very much. MJ, you came on at the last minute. Great show, very informative. Thank you very much. It really was. To me, we cannot forget what our ancestors taught us because that is having balance in your life. It's balance in your life, balance in your knowing. All right, everybody. Okay, frugal. What an awesome word. I know. Isn't it like the most awesome word? We got that on. All right, tomorrow is Thursday. We'll be talking on Thursday. And I know you guys will be talking about this conversation. We'll have a little bit of coffee and go buzz over it. Thea, I'm sending you big hugs, big virtual hugs. Thank you for being with us
big
today.
Hugs back to you. I am so honored. Thank you.
All right, you guys, peace out. Mwah. I'll see you tomorrow. That's been the Coffee Break Show today. Bye-bye. Really, go plant a garden. What are you waiting for?